Alright, so today I'm getting ready to replace this bearing on the camshaft gear for the valves, which interchanges with the spline shaft gear. This is the oil pump gear, and it doesn't have a bearing, and it's free flowing. I loosened it. I was going to pull it, and then I decided, nah, it's alright. As you can see, the main bearing here, this is in good shape. I was going to replace it. I didn't buy the part. There's nothing wrong with this, so I'm not replacing that. Also because I don't have an arbor press. I could probably get it in without it by using the vise, but there's only so much you can do with the vise, and I don't have a 4-inch depth on the vise, so do the math, it just wouldn't work. So in order to pull this, there's a bolt on the back. You can see I got my socket on it already. I'm just going to pull it out, and note it's got the timing marks, okay, and they are in 10, 12 and 2 positions, or 11, 12 and 1 positions. It is very important that you make sure when pulling this out, it goes back into those position, because otherwise you won't be timed and it will never run. Or if it does run, it won't run good, and there's no way of setting it to run it good. So this is crucial to know. See, if I line it up, you see the cam lobe is off, that's flat. That's top dead center right there. That's top dead center. And if I had the exhaust cam in too, it would be top dead center as well. The lobe for this would be in the 180 degrees in the different direction as that. So I'm going to do that, and we'll pause until I get this pulled out, and because I have no way of holding this. But it's just pulling this bolt and this nut here that I got the socket on, and the whole thing should just pop right out. And then I'll do the video of pulling the bearing out. Alright, so I've loosened it. I've pulled the rear nut off. You can't see it, but you can see just the tip coming out. So I'm going to finish pulling this out. And I didn't know this, but when I put the socket on here, here it comes. Ooh, that thing's heavy. There you go. When I put the socket on here and looked at the socket, I wanted to see, I thought it was like a 5/8, and when I pulled the socket off, looked at it, it was a 19 millimeter, which fits snug. So in case you want to know, 19 millimeter will work also. This looks to be in good shape. I'll take a little bit of steel wool to it to clean it up before I assemble it, put a little bit of litho on it. Yeah, it's in good shape, and it's just a press fit in there, you know. It's drawn in by the nut on the other side, but to loosen it, I had to use the yeah, this thing's got a lot of wobble to it. I can feel it in my finger, and I could feel it when I was spinning it too. So I'll pop this out with a socket, you know, and go from there. But again, notice the timing marks, crucial. So this would be this timing mark here, my intake, TDC, that's just the top. And then over here would be for the exhaust. You can barely see it. I was going to put white chalk on them. I'm still going to do that when I put this all back together, because the bushing on the cam is a lip here, and I can't pull this through. So when I put it back together, I'm going to be spinning this in the top dead center position just to line it up so that all 3 gears are in time. And you know, I can sit there and manipulate the piston rod too. So I'm not worried about this going back together and not being in time, but suggestion would be because of timing marks. And if you've ever worked on a V8 before and replaced the timing chain on a V8, you have the camshaft gear and you have the crankshaft gear on the bottom, and you have your timing marks. Those have to be lined perfectly or the vehicle won't run. Same would go here for the Gravely. So I'm going to pull this bearing out, replace it. It's just tap it out with the socket and put a new one in and let it go. And I'll show the installation when I'm done. Alright, so I've got the bearing about a quarter of the way out. I just wanted to share with you that I'm using an impact socket, and it's a 1-inch socket, and it fits perfectly in. A little bit of play in there. So just wanted to share that in the process of doing this. It's just like the bearing I did on the oil pump last night, except this is a little bit bigger, but and when I first started to pull this, pop this out, I used a vise with the socket on the inside just to get it started. So you can see how it's easily coming out. And I'm going to use the vise to press the new one in. So I think I'll give this one more good whack and it'll be out. It'll explode everywhere. So I guess. And there's the bearing or the gear. And it's nice and clean. Notice the milling on the back. Pretty neat. There's the old bearing. And yeah, there's play in that. Yeah. Teeny tiny bit of play, but it's enough play for me to say, I don't want it in there. So here's a new bearing. Doesn't matter which way you put it on. Nice and clean. I'm just going to pop it in real quick. I'm going to use the vise to get it started. And go from there. Alright, so here I'm pressing it in. And you notice I'm using the socket. Sorry about that. You notice I'm using the socket. And you're like, well, why the heck is he using a socket? Well, because the vise has these grips on it. And I don't want to put any burrs on the edge of the bearing so it doesn't go all the way in. So just cranking this in. It's just like a press. Going in nice and smooth. And the other side should stop. That looks like it's it. Yep, and there we got one pressed bearing back on in. I might get it in a little bit more, but yeah, we're good to go. Nice and smooth and no play, and life will be beautiful. So just another trick to rebuilding one of these old clunkers. It's I haven't found any videos out there that teach you how to do this, so I figured, you know what, I'm going to do this just so I can help my fellow grease monkey. And I'm not a grease monkey, but guy that works in finance. But you know what, I love tinkering. So anyway, you all take care.